In Peru, the number of people killed in the repression of nationwide demonstrations demanding general elections and a new constitution rises to 25. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko met in Minsk with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to discuss economic cooperation. South Africa's ruling party, African National Congress, re-elects the incumbent president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, as head of this political party for the next 5 years. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, the number of people killed in the repression of nationwide demonstrations demanding general elections and a new constitution rises to 25. The Health Ministry in its most recent bulletin said that of the 25 deaths, 9 were reported in the department of Ayacucho, 6 in Apurimac, 3 in Cusco, 3 in Junin, 3 in La Libertad, and 1 in Arequipa. Peru has been experiencing a period of social protest since last December 7th, when the Congress appointed Dina Boluarte as president of the country after dismissing the head of state Pedro Castillo, who is in preventive prison accused of the presumed crime of rebellion. In Brazil, a strike of pilots and flight attendants causes delays in dozens of flights on Monday morning. According to the administrator of Guarulhos International Airport, 19 flights were delayed throughout the morning, mainly at the airports of Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Brasilia, although there were no cancellations. According to local media, the strike took place between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and further protest actions are expected to take place in the next few days. Pilots and other airline employees demand better working conditions, recovery of inflationary losses, and renewal of the collective bargaining agreement. In Brazil, the Supreme Court of Justice authorized the financing of the Bolsa Familia social program. The measure will allow President-elect Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva to move forward with the program, even if Congress is against it. The Minister of the Supreme Court, Gilmar Mendes, authorized to include 600 Brazilian reals, equivalent to $130, to finance the Bolsa Familia program. The measure gives Lula da Silva a plan B to continue with the program, which would help the country tackle high poverty rates. Analysts say the Chamber of Deputies is threatening to reject the increase in resources for those social programs benefiting the most vulnerable families in the country. In Cuba, the 10th Congress of the National Federation of University Students takes place with the objective of contributing with new proposals for the construction of society. The activities of Congress, that will gather 300 delegates and guests in the capital until next December 20th, began with a welcoming ceremony for the participating delegations on Saturday at the central headquarters of the University of Havana. Local media reported that the plenary session for the nomination of deputies to the National Assembly of People's Power was a genuine exercise of democracy. Likewise, debates will be held to address issues relating to teaching, research, and university extension. In Canada, on Sunday night, 6 people died and 1 person was seriously injured after a shooting in the city of Vaughan in the Canadian Ontario province. According to local police report, the suspect was 73 years old, man who was pronounced dead at the scene after police shot him down. Another injured person has been taken to hospital in a serious condition. Authorities are investigating the motive of the attack, including a possible connection between the gunman and the victims, and say they are still in notifying victims' relatives. While it was fewer mass shootings than the U.S., Canada has recently seen an increase in gun violence, prompting recent legislation to ban handguns.
At about 7:20 p.m. tonight, our officers responded to what was an active shooting call here at 9235 Jane Street. Once the officers arrived, they were met with a scene, a horrendous scene, where numerous victims were deceased, and there was an engagement between the officers and a subject. And throughout that engagement, after the engagement, the subject was deceased as well.
On Sunday, Ecuador's Geophysical Institute reported that steam and gas emissions from the Cotopaxi volcano reached 1 kilometer in height. The institution warned that the cloud was moving in a southwesterly direction towards the Ecuadorian coast and consisted mostly of gas and very low ash load. Also this Sunday, the institute registered a tremor signal or internal vibration of about 20 meters of duration, which was accompanied by another emission cloud, this time 500 meters high. Despite both events, no ashfall was reported in sectors near the volcano. Since October 22nd, the National Service of Risk and Emergency Management of Ecuador issued a yellow alert for the area of influence of this volcano and urged the territorial administrations and the population to be alert. Let us take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In the United States, at least 36 people were injured as a result of severe turbulence that affected a flight from Phoenix to Honolulu in what Hawaiian Airlines described as an unusual and isolated event. Through its Twitter social network, Hawaiian Airlines detailed that flight HA-35 faced severe turbulence shortly before landing in Honolulu. The plane was carrying 278 passengers and 10 crew members. The airline also reported that 20 of the 36 injured had to be taken to hospital, of which 11 were classified as serious. The company stated that it will support all passengers and employees affected, while noting that a thorough inspection of the aircraft is being carried out before it is put back into service.
We just got off of our flight, inter-island flight from Maui to Oahu, and it was probably the most turbulent flight we've ever been on. We travel a lot. We weren't necessarily nervous anything was going to happen, but the turbulence was really, really rocky. We were more nervous we were going to throw up and get sick.
Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko met in Minsk with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to discuss economic cooperation. The two leaders discussed energy prices and security in the region, among other more global issues, such as finance and international trade. Putin and Lukashenko also discussed key aspects of their partnership in the fields of transport, access to state tenders, and consumer protection within the Eurasian Economic Union. The leaders also discussed topics such as currency policy, financial regulation, common principles of deposit insurance, and the fight against money laundering. Serbian government warned of risk of escalating tensions over its nationals living in northern Kosovo. The Prime Minister of Serbia, Ana Brnabić, accused the government of Kosovo of systematically violating the human rights of the Kosovo Serbs. She also pointed out that the European Union and the United States have not taken any action towards the demonstrations blocking the roads. Serbian security forces believe that the situation may lead to an armed conflict. They stated their ability to maintain peace and stability in the nation, but did not share the same concept for those Serbs living in Kosovo. In Russia, gas giant Gazprom surpasses its own daily gas supply record to China through the Siberian forced gas pipeline. The energy company said it had surpassed its daily shipments to the Asian giant by 16.6% as part of the gas purchase and sale contract. Gazprom reported that the all-time record shipment complies with China's request to increase daily supplies by December 2022. The Russian state-owned energy company and the Chinese National Oil Corporation have a contract for up to 30 years of cooperation. Russia and Iran announced the signing of bilateral cooperation agreements on health and education. Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin explained that the agreement involves cooperation in the training of specialists, prevention of infections, and promotion of a healthy lifestyle, as well as the transfer of technology specialized in the development of these areas. Since November 1st, the Russian Ministry of Health and the Iranian Ministry of Health and Medical Education have signed a memorandum of understanding to ease such exchanges. The United Kingdom's High Court ruled on Monday that a plan to send asylum seekers on a one-way trip to Rwanda is legal, but the government must consider the circumstances of each case before deporting anyone, a judgment that sets the controversial policy up for further legal battles. The judges said the policy did not breach Britain's obligations under the United Nations Refugee Convention or other international agreements. The UK government plans to send some asylum seekers who arrive in Britain to the East African country where their asylum claims would be processed. Those granted asylum will stay in Rwanda rather than return to the UK. Meanwhile, 8 asylum seekers and 8 groups and a border officials union filed lawsuits to stop the Conservative government acting on a deportation agreement with Rwanda that is intended to deter its people from trying to reach the UK on risky journeys across the English Channel. In France on Monday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed its country's exit from the Energy Charter Treaty. The decision will enter into force on January 1, 2024, and Paris will have to comply with its obligations until 2044 as set out in the treaty's rule. French President Emmanuel Macron had announced on October 21, 2022 his country's withdrawal from the agreement. In addition, the document, which aims to provide guarantees to investors in Eastern European countries and the former Soviet Union, allows companies to seek compensation from the state in private arbitration if state decisions affect the profitability of their investments. In France, at least 227 people were arrested during the clashes that followed the ending of the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. After the defeat of France, several clashes took place between the fans and police forces, leaving at least 227 arrests. The Ministry of Interior said that 50 of the detentions were made in the Champs-Élysées in Paris, while the rest took place in cities such as Lyon, Bordeaux, Nice, and Béziers. During the clash, the individual threw shells at the police, who had organized an important preventive deployment with 14,000 agents nationwide. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Jordan's Public Security Directorate announced that 3 police officers were killed on Monday and 5 others were wounded during a raid to arrest the suspected killers of a senior policeman last week. The Directorate added that 1 suspect was also killed during the raid and 8 people were arrested as part of the ongoing investigations. The Assistant Police Chief of Man had been killed on Friday during protests against high fuel prices in the Hashemite Kingdom. The Interior Minister, as well as King Abdullah II, warned that they would deal firmly with such protests if they turned into riots and guns were fired. The current protests in Jordan were sparked after truck drivers demanded a reduction in the price of diesel fuel on December 4th. Drivers' protests turned into a strike blocking the roads connecting the capital and the southern governorates. They were joined by public transport drivers as the strike spread across the country. In Iraq, at least 9 federal police officers were killed on Sunday in an attack attributed to jihadist members of Islamic State group against a truck that was transporting them in the north of the country. According to local authorities, the attack against the unit was launched with an explosive device and a direct burst of small weapons fired near the village of Jalal al-Matar, located on the outskirts of the city of Kirkuk. Police sources reported that in the incident, the officers managed to shoot down 1 attacker and 2 were wounded in the exchange of fire, and reiterated that they are searching for other attackers who fled. This happens in the context of a sustained violence in this territory after the Islamic State conquered several territories of the country in 2014. On Monday, the government of Syria and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, discussed ways to improve cooperation and ensure the stability of children. The Syrian Minister of Foreign Affairs received the UNICEF Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa at the Foreign Ministry headquarters. During the meeting, they discussed the effects of the war, the economic sanctions imposed by the West on Syria, and their consequences on education, health, and children. They will also address the impact of the global crisis and the need to make efforts to cope with it. On Monday, Ghana announced the temporary suspension of its external debt services and the beginning of a restructuring to face the escalating inflation. The Ministry of Finance specified that the measure aims to prevent further economic, financial, and social deterioration of the country, which has very limited financial reserves. The office explained that the suspension of payment is a provisional measure of emergency that will cease once the agreements are reached with all international creditors. The statement also emphasized that the payment of the multilateral debt and the new debts contracted to face the inflationary crisis, which exceeds 50%, are excluded from this suspension. The African National Congress Party of South Africa re-elects the current president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, as president of this political party for the next 5 years. With 2,476 votes, Ramaphosa surpassed the former health minister, Cyril Ramaphosa, who obtained 1,897 votes. In addition, the attendees elected Paul Mashatile as vice president of the political organization with 2,178 votes. The newly elected leaders, who make up the so-called top 7 of the ANC, will lead the destiny of the group until the 56th National Conference in 5 years. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.